The CDC releasing an updated childhood vaccine guide that recommends 4 fewer vaccines. Parents can now choose whether they want their kids to receive vaccinations for rotavirus, influenza, meningococcal disease, and hepatitis A. Parents still have to talk with their provider for what the CDC calls shared decision-making before anything could be administered.
So the recommendations have been changed from requiring or recommending to having a conversation, basically, on a number of these vaccines. And honestly, that's what pediatricians have been doing forever. And we would like to continue to do so you have the most up-to-date information.
These changes come after President Trump called for reducing the number of vaccines, which has been a long-term goal for HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.